Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And you get more information, find out about past shows at our website, which is behind me, blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield. I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the nation. And it's my pleasure to introduce Jan Lowe, who's Executive Director of Leadership Asheville of Asheville at UNCA. And Jan, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. Okay. And Jan, for the benefit of the folks who don't know, has been working the Leadership Asheville program at UNCA since 2014. Her capacity as director, she works closely with community leaders and volunteers to plan and execute LA Class Days, events, and community outreach programs. During her career in telecommunications operations management, Jan realized that her real passion was helping others succeed. Her work allows her to feed her passion by providing opportunities for community members to develop themselves as leaders and use their talents to give back to the communities. And Jan, since you mentioned it there, for the benefit of the folks who don't know Leadership Asheville and its mission, if I can ask you in, say, maybe 4 or 5 hours or less, if you could kind of give the Reader's Digest version. Oh, what is Leadership Asheville?
I will give you the Reader's Digest version.
Okay, great.
And hello, Blaine. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure, always.
So Leadership Asheville is a community leadership and awareness program. And we've been around for 42 years. In May, we graduated our 42nd class. In a nutshell, it teaches people what's going on in the community and gives them opportunities to get connected and give back. And we also teach leadership skills, their personal leadership skills. We're not teaching anyone how to run their business. We want people to understand what's important to them, why they do what they do, and what they want to do in the future to help others. In a nutshell, that's Leadership Asheville.
Now, you mentioned, Jan, if somebody's listening to this and thinking to themselves, so that's Asheville, but these programs are also right throughout the country. You know, Asheville has its place. How many other leadership programs are there? Do you have a ballpark idea?
There are, it's in the thousands.
Okay.
We are a member of the Association of Leadership Programs, and there are 700 members that are in that association. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's Leadership Greenville, South Carolina, Leadership Raleigh, Leadership Alamance, Leadership Charlotte, Leadership Atlanta, and they all started about the same time, the late 70s, early 80s. Many of them did. And originally, they may have been programs of a Chamber of Commerce. They might have been their own 501c3. Leadership Asheville actually started as a combination. It was supported both by the Chamber of Commerce and by UNC Asheville. And about 10 years in, UNC Asheville became the primary supporter and has been the supporter, with the exception of about a 4-year period there where finances were bad. In 2008, you remember the recession in 2008? There was about a 4-year period when the program left UNC Asheville and was on its own, but UNC Asheville wanted to get it back and did so in 2012, and we've been happily housed there ever since.
That's funny because that's when I think I was in the class of 2009 or 2010, Yep. Was just in that period of time where it's just by itself and didn't have the affiliation with the college. But if people are listening too, we should mention that if you're new to the area, especially, or you want to get involved in the community, boy, is this what you should be into, you know?
It truly is. It is a fast track way to get connected, know who's doing what, and find out a way you want to get involved. But actually, every year there'll be 5 or 6 people in the class who were born here, have lived here their entire lives. And it's amazing. At the end of each year, they'll come up to me and say, I had no idea. I've lived here all my life, and I learned so much through this program.
Well, it's funny too, you mentioned that, because same thing too, I wasn't born in Asheville, but boy, did I learn a lot through the program. And what was great about it, Jan, I saw stuff I never had knowledge about, you know, like the police department, you know, or the fire department. And what was great about it, it offered me and others the opportunity to explore other things as well. So I recall you weren't, I guess, involved then, but when I joined, So that's one of the things we want you to see, what else is out there. And I felt invited to check out all these other organizations. So is
Mhm.
that something you try to do too, not only in terms of getting people aware of what's happening in Asheville, but how do they get involved in other organizations as a result?
They definitely do. Every year we have folks who join nonprofit boards or who decide that they want to serve on a city or a county board or commission. Um, and the way the program works, and I'll just go over this
If you would.
quickly if you don't mind, starts in September and runs until May, and we meet basically once a month. There are a couple of months during the year where we meet twice. Um, we'll start with an orientation and just go over what to expect, what's going to happen throughout the year. Then we have a 2-night retreat that's held at the YMCA Blue Ridge Assembly in Black Mountain. And that really is meant just as a bonding type of experience for the class to really get to know each other, get away, and only do Leadership Asheville things. After the retreat, we start in October with our history day, and each class day after that is themed. So we talk about the history of Asheville, why that matters, why we want to know about that. Maybe so we don't make some of the mistakes we've made in the past, or maybe so we learn positive things from what's happened in the past. And then we have a day focused on equity and inclusion. We have a government day where we're talking about how the local government works, how the state government works, what impact the state legislature has on the decisions that can be made here. And it's amazing what folks learn during that particular class day. And all of a sudden, rather than saying, I don't know why the council doesn't do this, or why they all of a sudden go, oh, I get it. They're doing the best they can do in a lot of ways. We have an economic development day. We'll talk about arts and culture. We talk about health and human services, sustainability. So we give folks a good overview of a lot of different areas in the community to allow them to see what piques their interest. What is it that you would like to get involved with? They also work with a local nonprofit on a small group project throughout the year. So for instance, we had a group this past year who worked with Operation Gateway, which is a local nonprofit that reaches out to folks who are going to get out of prison, talks to them about what to expect once they get out, and then it follows them and helps them during their reentry process. We had a group work with them. We had a group work with Leaf Global Arts, another that worked with a local hospice organization. So we get out. Werner Early Learning was yet another
Yeah.
nonprofit. So the folks get out and they.
When they work with those projects, and
Mhm.
our year, we were working with different teams, had different nonprofits. Is that
Right.
how it's still run this year?
That is how it works. That is how it works. And the nonprofit comes to us with something they need help with. So I'll just use the Werner Early Learning. I don't think they'll mind. They have an experiential garden
Right.
out at their location near Warren Wilson. And while they do great with the garden and they know how to take the children out and take them through things and let them play and learn about gardening, what they didn't have was a 12-month plan of how to take care of that garden. What do they need to tell their volunteers who help them take care of the garden when it comes to, in January, this is what we need to be doing. In February, this is what we need to be doing. What plants can we sow? What type of what do we need to do during those months? So the team put together this 12-month plan. It was wonderful. It's terrific. And they've got, I think it's a 40-page document that tells them what needs to be done every month. And they can use that going forward to make sure that the garden stays healthy and it's there for the kids to learn from.
What I like about that is that, had specific groups who need help, whereas our year when I had it, and still remember the project, but everybody had to find their own project kind of thing, so we had, so we didn't specifically, I still remember it, have a specific organization we were working with, but we had, it's funny, I look at it in retrospect, we looked at the situation of Asheville being accessible for handicapped folks,
Right.
and we looked at it, was such a good project. We looked at how many places have ramps, at the end of the sidewalks, how many places have handicap parking, and how many people, it was amazing, Jan, are in violation of that. And I still look at parking lots now and still see it. They
Right.
don't have enough handicap parking. But it's funny that so many years ago, and I still remember it to this day, but
Yeah, and it just truly gets people involved a little more. And we do kind of a hybrid of what you did
yeah,
in 2009 or when the year you were in the
right,
program. We had 4 nonprofits that we worked with this year, and then 2 additional teams who kind of coalesced together about 2 different issues that they wanted to learn
okay,
more about in the community. One of them wanted to do some research on how to support our local school teachers. Teaching school is tough, and they wanted to figure out how they could support teachers. And what they're doing is they're going to put on a fundraiser for an elementary school so that they can raise money for a second grade assistant teacher in the second grade class, so that the school can afford to hire someone. I learned from them that oftentimes many schools have assistant teachers or a helper in the room for kindergarten and first grade, but
right.
they don't for second grade. And second grade is the year before they take that first standardized test in the third grade. And they really need 2 people in the classroom so that the teacher can give attention to all of the children and not be pulled in so many directions. And the team figured out that's what needed to be done. And they're putting on a fundraiser, a 5K race in October
Very nice.
to try to raise money for that. The other team actually worked with the city of Asheville to put together a database of reference locations for if someone calls and says, there's a person who is experiencing homelessness outside my store. I really want to help them, but I don't know what to do. So this reference document, it has dozens and dozens of locations and places that someone can get in touch with. And that's a wonderful thing too. It's great to have the nonprofits. There are some people in the class who would like to have a little bit of help and want to be told, gee, this nonprofit needs this to be done. So they've got kind of an action plan to start with. And there are others who really want to dive into something that jazzes them. Maybe one of the nonprofits, the need they had just didn't jazz them. So it's wonderful to have the opportunity to do either or. And we've done that for the past couple of years.
Talk about, Jen, something else that happens or happened with me in terms of the contacts you make and the people you
Mhm.
meet. And it's incredible. As you're talking, I'm still friendly with at least three members of my class. Several of them have been guests on my webcast, as you're mentioning. But it's kind of cool that we just met then, and 15 years later or whatever, we're still in touch. Does that
Mhm.
happen a lot?
It does happen. It does happen. As a matter of fact, I was talking with someone who was in last year's class, and uh, she and 5 or 6 of her classmates get together once a month for lunch or for dinner. So they do keep the connections up, and we try to do that with alumni events. But yeah, it's amazing. And they certainly use each other for references. They know that they had a banker or a lawyer or an
Right.
accountant in the class, and they can call on them.
We'll
Yeah.
also talk about the other opportunity affords graduates, and that's the whole networking option. As
Mhm.
you said, mentioning, and I use the same thing too, you need a lawyer. So I got friendly with a lawyer, and
Mhm.
that's how you develop the lawyer, but tremendous resource bank of people involved.
Mhm.
And it's amazing how many people either keep in touch with or know about or in the back of my mind, that I'd like to work with them again. So that's
Right, right.
pretty cool about that.
It is cool. It is cool.
Talk also, we mentioned this project then. So how
Mhm.
much time does somebody signs up for Leadership Asheville? You
Mhm.
mentioned they have to come to the orientation,
Mhm.
and they were lucky because we didn't have at the time the 2-day orientation. We just had
Okay.
a 1-day orientation. But they come to the orientation, they come to the sessions. How
Mhm.
much extra time does it take?
The project takes about 20 hours outside of class time.
Okay,
And the class days are a full day, as you will remember. We start at 8 o'clock and we finish at 5 o'clock. And that's something we're very clear about, when we tell folks on our website what to expect, and during orientation we go over it again. So it's a full day. But the small group projects take 20 to 30 hours, depending on the need and what happens. And that's done outside of class. There might be a couple of class days where we'll end with the final 30 minutes where the project teams can get together. But there is so much to talk about. If you just think about economic development. We really have about 6 hours during each class day, if we're lucky, for content. And you want to touch on everything that has to do with economic development in this community. That is very difficult to do. So it's hard for us to give time for project meetings during the class day. So most of that's done outside.
Now, two other things I remember from my class. I remember a lot from my class. I didn't hear you mention them, but at one time, I guess it was a day devoted to municipal government or city government. Is
Right.
that still there?
We do city government, we
Oh.
do state government. Yes,
But
that's a big deal. And
yeah.
yeah.
No, but to give example to folks, and again, the things I remember from Leadership Asheville, that we spent several hours with the fire department. But the most incredible thing, Jan, after this, and I think they still offer it, they then had a citizen fire department. I forgot what they call it, but I then got to spend a year looking at the fire department.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, and is that still in existence?
It is still in effect. I don't know how robust it is since
Right.
the pandemic, but I do know they're doing it again. And you could do a ride along with the APD, with the
Right, I did
police
that
department.
too. And that was the most outstanding thing. I remember that. So I studied the police department. It was for a whole, so you didn't have to with Asheville, Leadership Asheville, you introduced us to it. And you always would tell us, if you're interested, check with the people or find out more about it. And you could volunteer. They were asking as well. But to spend a year studying the APD, that was pretty cool, you know.
That's
And
it's an amazing opportunity, and that's what Leadership Asheville does for you. We may not line up that 1 year program for you with the fire department or the police department, but we let you know it exists, and we tell you who to get in touch with if it is something that interests you.
okay,
So
and what's great too, and to get in touch with, but oftentimes right at the end of the session, you have a couple minutes to speak to the people individually, and they're all looking for volunteers. They're all looking for people to work with. And so anybody comes on board, they're very receptive. Now, I remember, I can't believe all these things I got from Leadership Asheville. One year we studied also, I don't know if I don't think they offer it anymore, but they used to offer a behind the scenes look at the hospital. So it was mission. Boy, I like that, you know. So for a year, you got to study every department in the hospital. And I understand they phased that out, but I don't know if you were there when they had that, but boy, was that
they
good.
have phased that out. But part of the class days, we take site visits every class day. So we will go to Mission Hospital, or we will go to Haywood Street Congregation and visit with them and see what's happening there. We went to Borg Warner Turbo Systems earlier this year. We went to GE Aerospace. So we get behind the scene tours of these locations that have some connection to whatever the theme is for the class day.
And as you mentioned it, I'm smiling because I remember all these experiences I had with Leadership Asheville. We also went to the tourists, and we spent, I don't know if you still do that, but it's just fun. We were in the dugout and we spent a couple of hours in the tourists. But that's just kind of a cool thing to see, you know, and never seen it before. And again, that's something people are listening. If you want to learn about Asheville in a year, you couldn't do this on your own. You know,
You could not.
It's
You could not.
impossible. So just a really cool thing. If folks want to sign up for Leadership Asheville, what's the procedure? And then I'll talk about that if you would.
Okay. So the best way to find out, to get the details about the program, are to go to our website, which is leadershipasheville.unca.edu. And on that, you'll find information about the flagship program. We are in the middle of the application season right now. And the official deadline is this Friday, May the 31st. But if anyone's interested and needs a little extra time, just get in touch with me. My email address is jlowe@unca.edu. And I'll be happy to give you some extra time if that's what you'd like to do. But the application deadline is Friday. So that again is the best way to get the information.
Now, Jen, if you would, on that topic, so describe then what happened. So it was a fairly involved application. I remember it wasn't difficult to fill in, but it was pretty involved. What are you looking to find out? If somebody applies, what are you looking to find out about somebody?
Basic demographic information. Who are you? Where do you work? We ask a little bit about what kind of volunteer work you've done in the past, what professional organizations maybe you are a part of. And then we ask, I think there are 4 sort of essay questions, and they're not hard. They basically are questions that relate to what's important to you. What is there about Asheville and Buncombe County and Western North Carolina that you really love? What issues do you see that could be better? And how would you go about making those issues better? So those are the types of questions that we're asking. It's not hard, it's not difficult. There are no requirements. You don't have to have a master's degree or you don't even have to have a bachelor's degree. We're not as concerned about that. What we were concerned about is having people in the class who really want to learn from the other people in the class, from the folks we bring in to teach them throughout the year, and who want to make a difference within the community.
Now, mention the fact too that I think I asked you this off the air. The class typically has how many people in it?
Somewhere between 45 and 50.
So mention the fact that you can apply, but even if you don't get in the first time, people shouldn't give up because sometimes people don't get in the first time, get in the second time.
That's exactly right. That happens often. Sometimes we just get so many applications that we just can't take more than 51 or 2 would be the absolute maximum. It just any more than that, you don't develop the connections. You know how that is. If you're in a room of 50 people,
Sure.
yeah, you're going to make contacts with 6 or 8 people, and that's it. And we try very hard to make sure that you have a little more contact with others than that. So it simply is a numbers game. If we have 70 applications, there are 20 people who we're just not going to be able to take this year. But we do keep your name for the next year. We'll get in touch with you when it's time to apply again, and we invite you to do that.
Now, you don't have to mention the dollar amount, but there is a fee involved. Is that correct?
There is a tuition. There is tuition.
Okay.
If the tuition is difficult, most of the organizations that folks work for pay the tuition. It's a terrific program for an organization. So for instance, if you're a bank, I'm just gonna say that, and you send someone to the Leadership Asheville program, if you think about it, you're getting them more involved in the community.
Right.
That will help with retention, okay, of that person. And you're opening them up to 45 or 50 more people who could become clients eventually of this person. So it's a wonderful program for an organization to back and support and send someone each year. And we have several companies who send someone every year.
As you said, again, things I still remember. I do remember a lot of my contacts. I also remember the positions they had. They were with the police department. They were with the fire department. They were with the Asheville airport. It just, I was like almost blown away because at the time, and I was very grateful for Leadership Asheville, I was still the new kid on the block. I had only been in Asheville for a year or something. And so I was lucky to have gotten chosen because, a lot of these people had been in Asheville, if not their lives, for a long period of time. But again, that's not a requirement, right?
No, it's not. And we had someone 4 or 5 years ago who became the CEO, executive director of a large nonprofit here. He got here in July, I think, and went ahead and took the plunge and started Leadership Asheville in September. And he said that he thought, well, maybe I should wait a year. Let me get my feet wet with this organization. But after the program was over, he came to me and he said, it's the best thing I could have done. I immediately got involved. I met people who I would not have met in that first year, and it really made things easier for me ultimately.
And that's my thinking too, just get involved right away. So I was new to the experience. Talk also about the fact too, that aside from Leadership Asheville, I didn't do this, but there's also Leadership New Jersey. Is that correct?
There are Leadership New Jerseys. There's Leadership everything.
Leadership North Carolina.
Yes, Leadership North Carolina. There is Leadership
some
North
of the
Carolina.
folks who graduate Leadership Asheville go on to Leadership North Carolina.
I think we've had 6 or 8 folks.
I've heard that, yeah,
who've been through the program who became Leadership North Carolina graduates.
Because again, it sort of you get the bug to want to do other things as well.
Right.
And I'll give you a compliment to Leadership Asheville because I had done many years ago it was Leadership New Jersey, and I actually thought Leadership Asheville was better and I've got more out of it than the whole statewide program. But good or bad, if somebody signs up, you're going to have the bug. You're going to get the bug to want to get more involved in Asheville. And so as part of that, talk about, Jan, one of the things you do each year, and that also helps people in the Asheville area. I guess the beauty of it, people are giving back to the community. That's what you're looking for. I think, what was it? You even asked that question at one time or something. What can we do for you, but what can you do for, that might have been one of the essay
Right.
questions, or
Right, it is. What can you do for Asheville? What is it that you can get involved in? And we do ask that
I
question
remember I
often.
was kind of thrown by that when who would have
Yeah,
thought,
you have to think about it. You have to think about it.
but a great,
Um,
great question to ask. Yeah. So
mhm,
we were starting to say then, one of the things that Leadership Asheville does to give back to the community, and it's upcoming, right? We have this breakfast series,
mhm,
and talk a little
mhm.
bit about that.
So every summer we have something we call the Leadership Asheville Summer Buzz Breakfast Series. And we host a breakfast, one in June, one in July, and one in August. And they're kind of connected and themed as well, each of the three breakfast events. This summer, we're going to be talking about education. And that may not be the hottest topic in the world, but to me, it is just a crucial topic for us to talk about. There are a lot of things that are going on that are impacting education at various levels. And we're going to get into that this summer and learn about the challenges and the opportunities and the things our local educators are facing every day, and figure out a way that we can help them as community members. So in June, we're going to be talking about birth to five, those first 2,000 days, and just how critical that is, crucial to the rest of these children's lives and to our lives. You know, that first 2,000 days has a huge impact on the children's education, their health, and their economic well-being. And their economic well-being, of course, impacts all of us. So those first 2,000 days are important. And we'll be hearing from folks like Amy Berry and Marsha Whitney, Cece
Okay.
Weston, Greg Borum. These are folks who are deeply involved in early childhood education and are in the middle of being advocates and working with the state to get additional funding. So these experts will walk us through that.
By the way, you mentioned Whitney. So she was one of my classmates. So I'm
Oh,
still friendly
that's great.
with her, and she's been a guest on my show.
Mhm,
But so if somebody comes to the breakfast,
mhm.
what is it? They get breakfast, and how long is the breakfast? What
Yeah.
happens?
So the doors open. Well, all of the breakfasts are held at the Crown Plaza Expo Center. So we're there. June 12th is the first one. Let me go ahead and give you those days. June the 12th. Then we have July the 10th, when we're going to be talking about higher ed. What's going on with higher ed? There's a lot of changes in higher
Sure.
ed, and we want to get our pulse on that. And then August 14th, we'll be talking about kindergarten through 12th. And there are lots of issues to talk about there. Everything from the private school vouchers that it seems like the legislature is going to fund, and the potential for a merger of our two school systems. That's several months out. There's a study being done on it, but we'll talk about that. So there's a lot going on in the education realm. But the breakfast, the doors open at 7:45 in the morning, and you have breakfast and networking until 8:30, at which time the program starts, and we are finished by 10 o'clock. Normally
Okay.
it's somewhere between 9:45 and 10. So you can get on with your day, but be involved in and be someone who ultimately we hope makes a difference uh, in our community. And this summer, again, talking about education and the critical uh, piece that we need to work on here locally and nationwide, honestly.
And since you mentioned it, I just get your opinion, and I'll share mine. But you talk about the networking opportunities. So
Mhm,
again, strongly encourage people get there, even though it's early. At least for me, other people get there
mhm,
in the beginning,
mhm.
because that's where you meet people. And let me ask you your opinion. It's, and I talk about this also, that so you go to a function breakfast, how many people typically come to the breakfast?
It depends. It's somewhere between 125 and 200.
So
The June breakfast typically has the fewest folks attending, and that simply is it's held right after school gets out, and I
right.
think folks are running off for vacation.
But I want to share the idea, though, the fact that even though there are 125 people there and there'll be 8 to 10 people at your table, your goal, I contend at least, should not be to meet all 125 people,
Yeah.
and talk about that, because I think what you do with the tables is great.
Mhm,
That I always contend, if you meet 8 to 10 people, even 2 to 3 people,
mhm.
that's great. But after you meet them, what do you tell them you have to do with them? You meet them.
Well, we try to tell them that you're trading cards and you should go have coffee with that person who you just sat next to.
No, but that's so true because I know too many other people, Jan,
Mhm.
they come to a function and want to get 125 cards and
Mhm.
then do nothing with them.
That's
You're
right.
much better off, as you said, meet 2 or 3 people. And then what I always tell people, find out what you can do for them, in terms of
Mhm.
how can I help you or how can I, what Jan, I'll do, I'll send an article or something about
Mhm.
their business or what they're doing.
Mhm.
Because I find the best way to network rather than just
That's excellent advice, Blaine. That is terrific.
but just, and I assume you do this in Leadership Asheville, but just, even that first session, the goal I contend should be a couple people to get friendly with, but then
Mhm.
each session, ideally, try to meet 2 or 3 other people, so
Mhm.
you won't know 50 people in the class, but you'll know maybe half of them pretty
That's right.
well. But so many
Mhm.
people miss the opportunity. So
Mhm.
get to these early. How do they sign up for them?
They can sign up on the website, again, leadershipasheville.unca.edu, and there's an events tab. Click on the events tab and the Buzz Breakfast will pop up. There are ways to buy tickets. It's $30 for each breakfast. Or if you want to buy the series, you can buy a ticket to all 3 at $70. So you save
Okay, a lot of money,
$20 by doing that. And we have folks who purchase table sponsorships as well. A table holds 8 people, and for $1,000, you can get a table series sponsorship. We talk about your organization from the podium. You're in the program. You're up on the screen on the video screen, so you get some publicity and you show your support for your community. So if an organization is interested in that, that's on the website. And I do want to say that any funds that we raise from the Buzz Breakfast series, Blaine, are used for financial assistance for folks who want to take part in the flagship program, but just can't afford it. And that's very important to us. We don't want financial issues to be a barrier, but we do have to raise the money to be able to offer that. So that's the purpose. The purpose of the Buzz Breakfast is to educate the community, but it's also to let us raise a little bit of money so we can help folks who want to take part in the program, but otherwise would not be able to do so.
And 2 last questions, Jan. If folks want to find out more about Leadership Asheville, you mentioned go to the website. Do you have a mailing list or do you send out stuff?
We do have a mailing list, and you can, on the website, you can sign up for it and you'll get our email blast. We try not to send those out too often. But with the events going on for the summer, you'll get one every couple of weeks. After that, typically it's just a quarterly update on what's happening with Leadership Asheville.
If you would talk about one last thing, which Leadership Asheville does, and I remember I valued at the time, but you also welcome volunteers into helping out and talk about that process. So if somebody wants to serve Leadership Asheville beyond their class year,
Yes.
how else can they get involved?
Well, it's a requirement that you give us back 20 hours of volunteer time within the next year or
Oh, is
two,
it? Okay,
once
cool.
you graduate. So what folks typically do, Blaine, is they help plan a class day. So for instance, I will have 3 or 4 graduates from this class that finished a couple of weeks ago who are on the History Day committee, and they will help plan History Day. And then I'll have another 4 or 5 people who are on the Government Day committee. So they spread out during the year, and they help plan a class day, or maybe they will help plan the Buzz Breakfast next summer, 2025, or perhaps they'll serve on the alumni committee and put together 2 or 3 alumni events each year. So that's how they help us. And it's a great experience when you're helping to plan a class day. You're meeting even more people in the community because you're talking with me and other volunteers about what you'd like to learn about, let's just say, sustainability and the environment. So the group talks, figures out what the topics are going to be, and then they go contact the people who are going to be speakers. So they're getting introduced to even more people that year that they're volunteering with us.
And you mentioned it, but it has me smiling because I remember that as well, that after my class, I was still in touch, and then it was fun too because I was in touch with people other than in my class, so it wasn't just the immediate class. And again, contacts, but the nice thing, and you kind of alluded to it, making contacts to help other people. They were of no help to me per se, personally, for my own business or what I was doing, but just it was a great experience. And I think you see that all the time, and people giving back to the community I forget the expression, you've heard it, but they get much more out of giving back than they ever got. It's just a
That's
great
right.
experience.
That's right. And it's wonderful for me just to see people, on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn when they post something about, I got involved with this or I got involved with that. And it warms my heart to see those kinds of things.
Well, anyway, Jan Lowe, I'd like to thank you for all you do for Leadership Asheville, for coming on board today. One last time, if folks want to get more information about Leadership Asheville, the best bet is to go to the website, which was
leadershipasheville.unca.edu.
Okay, I'll just tell people, especially if they're new to the area, you're in for a marvelous experience if you get involved in this organization. And thank you for all you do, Jan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Blaine.
Okay, I hope to see you soon. Be well.